Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. We're about to tell you about an event that's coming up shortly. It's called Fusion, the Jazz Experience, featuring the National Steel Symphony Orchestra. And this morning, I want to welcome the Assistant Director of the orchestra, Kareem Brown, as well as the Musical Director, Dr. Gormandy-Benjamin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank
How
you
are we
for
doing
having us
this morning?
Good.
Good. Fantastic, man.
You're good.
Doc, I find your voice went up about October when you said, good day, boy. All right, so tell me about Fusion, the Jazz Experience. What is the intention behind the event?
So this is actually the 5th installment, and the National Steel Symphony Orchestra over the years have always offered a jazz show.
Right.
And in this case, we are looking at styles from around the world. And jazz is a style of music originating from the United States and African American communities, late 19th century, early 20th century. But we like to take a swing on that. So even though we're offering music from the US at a traditional jazz, Duke Ellington, for example, is one of the composers, we're also looking at showcasing how improvisation as a stylistic performance that you would see out of jazz can be used as well for East Indian classical music. We're also playing music from Argentina, Brazil, so we're sort of traveling the world on our stage, just showcasing how jazz can be shown in different realms.
Oh, Kareem, when you mention things like improvisation, when Doctor mentions that, to me, I was like, that's what pianists do all the time anyway. Like when a man have a solo in between, it's not a practice solo where you're playing every note beforehand.
Nah.
It tends to be that version of jazz. So what's special about this concept from your perspective?
No, I mean, we have, she had mentioned, improv, right? So, I mean, we about to mention some of the guests, but we have some youths coming in. And we have been going through that same thing about improv.
Yeah, and kind of teaching them?
Yeah, kind of nurturing them and, bringing them along and whatever. And actually showing them, really do your music. Go back home, you practice where you find your devices and whatever, and you come in and you do it, right? And I'm thinking that the improv that we do, and once you do it like that, it is fresh and new.
Right.
Right, so, I mean, you hear solo yesterday, and tomorrow you hear a different solo, right? So,
is that exciting for you as a musician?
It is, and it's challenging too.
Right.
I'm performing in the past, and you had a fantastic night, the first night, and you try to see how you can top that. that's the challenge right there.
Yeah.
And that's where the props comes in, and the thinking and the whole vibe of the whole show.
Yeah.
And as you know, NSSO would like to always bring a newness and a freshness. So whatever we do, and so I mean, it's nothing in me song like, hey, we're doing it all the time, but we try to do it differently and, and bring the audience with us at the same time.
Now, one of the things I've been seeing people complaining online about is that we have a bunch of jazz shows and it's not actual jazz they're playing. You would have mentioned that, you're going back to the roots of jazz, the Duke Ellingtons, and you're going to jazz from around the world. How do you feel about the fusion of jazz that we do in terms of Trinbagonian, Caribbean jazz, where we kind of put our twist on it? Is it still jazz, or is it now something completely different?
That's a very controversial question.
That's why I asked it.
So for me personally, I actually studied in the US and studied jazz to some extent. So coming home,
so asking the right person.
Coming out, moving back to Trinidad and realizing what people call jazz, I'm like, but that's not necessarily. But you know what though? I think there is some merit to it though.
Right.
Because jazz started off as something that was sort of the people and something that people, a way for people to express themselves, and that's what we're doing here. So even though it may not be considered the traditional jazz or the specific style like swing or bebop or something that comes out of the traditional jazz era, it doesn't necessarily mean that the concept of jazz is something that we're not, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're using that concept for
And ourselves. I think that's one of the things that always gets me is like, is it a strict genre, or is it more of a concept? In terms of being able to do that improv, being able to freestyle and change the key in the middle of the song and the whole band going. It's always amazing to me when people are able to do that kind of improv as musicians. And to me, in my head, that's what jazz was. But I know that there are people who are very strict on defining
of course,
the jazz.
of course.
When is this concert happening?
So our concert is, we have 2 shows.
Right.
We have May 2nd, which is this Friday evening at 7 p.m. at the National Academy for the Performing Arts, Lord Kitchener Auditorium. And then the same location on Saturday, May 3rd, same time, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. both nights. Where do we get tickets? How much do they cost, Kareem?
Napa box office, right? And we also have the members of the National Steel Symphony Orchestra who selling tickets as well. So if you know a member, even the other entities, I know they would also engage in selling tickets too as well.
This is the Philharmonic Orchestra,
right? And the
Theatre
National
Arts Company.
Philharmonic and National Theatre Arts Company, right? So they also will be involved in selling tickets. So the main office is Napa box office,
Right.
but once you know a member, I think you'll get a ticket.
And you can also get them on Island e-tickets as well.
Okay. And how much do they
Which is
cost?
really nice. $150 and $200, depending on where you'd like to sit.
It depends on where you would like to sit. All right, now Kareem would have alluded to you all having guests on the show. Any special guests that you want to mention this morning? Doc?
Of course, Freetown Collective. We-
Very familiar with it.
I know.
I hear about them already.
So we're really happy to have Freetown Collective sort of performing with us. And then we have, as Mr. Brown mentioned, some youths that we're featuring as well from across Trinidad and Tobago. We have Tabla as well to play with us on our Indian music, and that is Prashant Patasa. We also have dancers as well from Trinity. So we have a wide range of different guests who are coming on and collaborating with us in this endeavor.
Doc, I have to ask, how has your tenure been so far as the musical director of NSSO? How has that journey been for you so far?
Actually, really great.
Yeah?
I really enjoy it because the National Steel Symphony Orchestra performers, they're extremely talented. You know, I always say the best of the best is in there.
Yeah.
We have some excellent arrangers, performers, persons who do excellent jobs at improvising. Mr. Kareem Brown being one of them. You know, so it's really an honor to work with them, and you know, being in other spaces where it takes a little time to learn the music. It's like, boom, here's a score, and then it's like within yesterday we learned a whole song in 2 hours.
Has the power of being able to read the music as well?
The power of being able to read and stuff like that. So it really has been an honor, and I enjoy also working with the National Philharmonic Orchestra and the National Theatre Arts Company as well.
Fantastic. Well, it's happening this coming Friday and Saturday. Fusion, the Jazz Experience, featuring the National Steel Symphony Orchestra at the National Academy for the Performing Arts. Friday evening, 7 p.m., Saturday evening, 7 p.m. as well, yeah? Tickets are $150 or $200, depending on where you want to sit. And it's available at Napa box office or from any one of the members of the NSSO, the NPO, or the NTAC, yeah? I have one more question, Dr. Gormandy.
Oh, yes.
I know that you were part of the team or people responsible for saying that we want to take the panorama scores or score out the panorama performances. How important is that for us and our legacy in terms of these pieces of music that are created on an annual basis for this competition? You have how many ever bands producing how much ever pieces of music. How important is it for that to be documented?
It is vital. It is vital. It's a very important part of preservation, because what tends to happen for Panorama is that you have these amazing works that are performed, and then all you really have is a recording.
Yeah.
And if anybody wanted to reproduce that arrangement, it's quite difficult, because to actually decide what each instrument was playing, and then it depends on the quality
of the recording
and all of that. So having it scored and actually for preservation purposes, for educational purposes, 100 years from now, for persons to come and say, you know, I want to study what Kareem Brown did in Highlanders. You know, just having our music sort of documented in this really important, in this strategic way is really, really important. And I sort of hope that more bands will be encouraged to do that. And then we have platforms like Panotation, for example, where we have, it's an online portal that allows these arrangements to be up for sale if they prefer, you know, to do that. So, and I mean, it's something that I can't even stress even more than that, but it really is important.
Kareem, just before we wrap, as a member of the NSSO, I mean, you've been a member since I meet you in the NSSO, right? Years ago. But I want to know the importance of that documentation for players, for members of the NSSO, to be able to say, well, yes, we have this library of music that we can now pull from. How important is that for you?
No, it's very important. It's very, very important. As Dr. Mia had mentioned, even I've been in the orchestra for so long, let me say 20 years from now, you know, we have other members joining, they could actually go back into that archive and say, all right, let us do an arrangement of Book Z or whatever. and it's there to be done. You know what I mean? And it's there to be studied too as well.
Yeah.
Good? You know, and what we doing too as well is documenting our own local music too. At the same time, we might be doing transcription of these European stuff.
Tchaikovsky and all of that.
Yeah, but at the same time, NSSO real vision is local and documenting local, so that we make sure that it's there years to come and to be accessed, right? So that is one of the things that NSSO and the importance of reading and documenting. That is what it is, you know.
Yeah. Music literacy. We're talking jazz fusion as well happening this weekend. Thank you guys so very much for joining us, and all the best at the show this weekend. I'll see you there on Friday.
Thank you, yes.
Of course, of course.
All right, guys. We take a quick break and we come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.